one to the cloud. It'll be posted just like normal. But if ever you want me to live stream it, just tell me if we think we're really going to hit something that people really want to hear about or whatever. I think it's always important to live stream, but I think we're just going to kind of talk in circles, not in circles. I know we have important things to talk about, but more just for us than anybody else.
Yeah, yeah. This is designed to be kind of a, 30,000-foot view planning and where items of discussion should be directed to for the year.
Perfect.
So, with no further ado, it is 1902 on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. This is the community committee being called to order by myself, David McNamara. In attendance, we have Her Honor Mayor Tiffany Hughes, Councilman Tony Benedetti, and Councilman Joe Curl. And also in attendance, we have Councilwoman Diane Shrimp. So, thank you everyone for coming. So, as we discussed in December, and as I sent out in December, there was a list of requests that the residents all had, at least the ones who communicated with me, their requests. And let me pull up my copy. I'll see if I can, I don't really think I can screen share very well on it or at all on a tablet, but I will read. Come on, load. Village, here we go. So, here are the resident requests for 2021 that were given to me. There has been a request for restoration of asphalt on the multi-use pathway on Minerva Drive. I would assume that would that be a streets matter to refer that to, or would that be a Franklin County?
Well, I think that's on our radar right now. The path.
Okay.
I think that we're talking about by the parking lot connecting to the building.
All right, wonderful. So you guys were on top of that. Wonderful. There has been, when I made this poll, there was a huge request for a multi-use pathway to connect our neighborhood and schools with the Alum Creek Trail. I understand we can't really knock that out in one meeting. Same thing with bike path connectors with Jordan Road at Park Lane, and alternative to parking lots and walkways on Cleveland Avenue. So those are things that the people put on the agenda for us to at least look into. There was also a request for a actual bathroom rather than a porta potty set up near the basketball court. And I know we were discussing that in the early stages.
I interrupt.
I thought we were, the idea here, I'm guessed, but I thought the idea was that we wanted to see what might be passed on to planning and zoning, because what you're talking about are all take some research and time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So the idea was, what does council agree so they could be on the same page as planning and zoning?
Yeah. What I was attempting to do was to go through the list in case people didn't still have theirs, and then see in which direction we send these matters, the ones that we feel are feasibly addressed. Do we send it to planning and zoning? Do we keep it within council itself? Do we keep it, where are things going for the year 2021 was what I hope we can at least get started figuring out. Does that clear things up, ma'am?
Yes.
Cool.
So far.
I had a question about, is there several people that have asked for these, or is it just, each one of these is one person's suggestion? I mean,
that is an excellent question, Tony. So Most of them were one or two commenters on Facebook, and if you dig through the Minerva Park, I believe it's open discussion. You can find my original thread to see how many people commented on each. But I do have marked down that the multi-use pathways and trail and bike path connectors were incredibly popular. That is something that I figured would probably end up with planning and zoning. But of course, I would be more than happy to lend whatever assistance we can as well, whatever that ends up being. Overall, I mean, of course, the lakes will be a large priority. And of course, we'll have, oh, where did my train of thought go? But yeah, so has there been a planning and zoning meeting for 2021 yet?
No, we're having it tomorrow. I'm on a roll. here.
Tomorrow, okay.
We get another meeting tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, sadly, I'm going to be at work tomorrow, but
That's all right.
yeah, so I guess
Maybe we go
since-
back to the top of the list here, so we don't, as we go through it. What was the first thing?
The first thing was the asphalt breakdown on Minerva Road that I
Alright,
was,
the asphalt. Now that's
yeah, that you
something
guys
that,
were aware of.
from what are we gonna do? That's something that we're working on already.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, what was the next
Excellent.
one? We're working on that, in progress.
Excellent progress. The next one was just the 5 or 10 comments I'd received about multi-use pathways or connection to the Alum Creek Trail.
And that's another
which
one I could
again-
say as being the liaison from planning and zoning, that
Excellent.
we're having a lot, that's been part of our discussion. There are ongoing discussions about the connector with Jordan Road. And, I think we want to talk about a connecting path from Farview, or from the pool to the new development. So I would say that, pathways are on P&Z's plate already. I would
Excellent.
say that the asphalts, I mean, that's something that'd be an administrative thing. I think that we're working on that. All right.
Okay.
Where would you connect up the trails to the Alum Creek Trail, David?
What's that?
Do they
Well,
have
there has been discussion with Morpsey with, in the past, they had talked about it. But I think the issue is with the traffic down there and that how that intersection of Westerville and Minerva Lake Road is not the safest, I think was.
Yeah, you'd want like a dedicated crosswalk or a bridge or a tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I know Morpsey was involved with that discussion as well, but to answer your specific question, Joe, I don't know the exact latitude and longitude they'd be planning.
Well,
on.
I didn't mean it that way. I mean in general, because it would have to go across Old Route 3, and then
Mhm.
there's an open area there, and then it's still got to cross the river. But if we
Yeah.
ever did get connected, if anyone's looked at the maps of the trail system, it would connect to. It goes all the way from Cincinnati to Cleveland.
Well, that'd be cool.
There's a
So,
short
the
little
quick-
section in Westerville. For some reason or other, they haven't completed, but Westerville has a very sophisticated trail system.
Well,
Once you're
That's
hooked up, you could do your 100-mile bike ride real easy.
that'd be excellent for us to aspire to. Madam Mayor, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Eric and I have actually talked about it in a couple different meetings that we have had, because we've obviously gotten that request quite a bit. We had somebody write some letters and send in some information as well. Morpsey is one of the people that we have been talking to, not grant writers, but grants in general, and just how to make it work, because obviously it's a very populated area as far as traffic and all of that goes. How can we make it work? Where could we connect to it? And there are some there are some pathways to make it work. It's just whether or not, it's something that we can financially do with the assistance of some other people. The problems that not the problems, but some of the, I'm getting way too into this and I don't want to go too far into it, is that's all fine and dandy, but then you don't have any pathways in the village. So you're trying to connect us to a pathway, but you have no sidewalks, you have no nothing to get from Cleveland Avenue to Westerville Road. So, we're assuming, and, this is just an assumption, that if we did this, they're going to want to see a pathway to get from Cleveland Avenue to Westerville Road to, get even further into that way that connects up to the sidewalks and everything. So there's probably going to be more on our part that we're assuming that's going to come into this. That's also going to be a discussion with the schools coming in. That's where, again, we've talked about getting some sort of pathway on one side of Minerva Lake Road. Nobody has said which side of the road or anything, but that is also a discussion that we have started in-house.
Could we by any chance convince the builders while building the infrastructure for the new school to throw in a row of sidewalk that might help in that connection project down the road?
Well, again, I think that's everything that we would, whether or not we looked at some
That's the
sidewalk in
easy
front of our
part.
building, but
Yeah, that's
there's
the easy part, exactly.
the part that you're going to have is, there's going to be trees in the way, there's going to be driveways in the way, there's going to be brick walls in the way, there's going to be, trying to put a sidewalk in on either side of the road. You're going to have issues.
It would be very difficult, I can imagine that, because we have very nice trees.
It's a multi-year project and it's something that has been discussed. It's great to hear that you guys want to be involved in something like that. Because it's also, you can only get so many grants and you can only get so many things that you would have to put some in yourself. I am as on board, and I know people that live on Minerva Lake Road are probably going to cringe when they hear me say this, but kids being able to walk to school in the village and having some sort of pathway, and whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's just a small path to get through to where they're not walking in the street, is something that I'm completely behind. And again,
yes,
there will be some people that aren't, but children trying to walk to school, I watch the kids walk to school because I've driven my kid to school every single morning that early, and I see these kids walking in the street when it's dark, and it's not the safest thing in the world. We didn't used to have this many kids in the village, and now we do. So I'm all on board for it.
Yeah, and that's a plus. That's a wonderful thing. That's strength for our future. The least we could do is accommodate these children. Walking to school, that's the era of people not walking to school. That's the anomaly,
Right. Yeah, we're fortunate to have these, for the people that want them. We are fortunate to have these schools in the neighborhood. For somebody that drove their kid to school halfway across Westerville, I would have loved to have had a neighborhood school when my kids were in school. So I can't.
And
tell
we're
you
going to
how
have
many
one now.
Yeah, how many hours I've spent in the car dropping off my kids to and from school at Heritage. So they literally go to the third furthest middle school away right now. So anyways, without going crazy in that topic, that is a discussion that we plan on having with Westerville Schools. That's a plan, it's a multi-level project. It's something that it's going to take every bit of planning and zoning and council being on board to make something like this happen. And it's also going to be, depending on if we can make it happen, the residents getting on board, because you're going to be working in many of their yards. And I think it is the future. I'm only here for 3 years, but I foresee that happening eventually. I will be surprised if it doesn't.
I'll make a suggestion. Clintonville had a heck of a time without sidewalks. There's the sidewalks here, none there.
Yep.
Heavy traffic, high street.
Mhm.
They've put a very nice bike trail system in down there, and it's, rather than try and describe it, people interested might want to just cruise down around along where the river is in Clintonville and see how they did it.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Again, I think it's a great thing, for somebody that walks. I hate walking in the street more than anybody. So it's dangerous. It's half of the complaints we get, speeding cars and this and that. So trying to, fight the traffic and all that, it would be nice. We don't need it on both sides of the road. I'm not pushing for everywhere in the village, but I think just at least one connector right through the middle of the village, and then Jordan Road getting connected are two of my biggest things that I hope we can really get moving on. We've
Well,
talked
that's
about
excellent.
Jordan Road forever.
That is excellent. So it sounds like and again, still, this is just going into my second year, so my first full year with you guys. I know that there's still some things that, you guys were discussing long before I got here that's being addressed to me now as New Year's requests.
Mhm.
So that's wonderful to hear that we already have, interest and some balls are rolling at least, which is excellent. Another thing that we might want to discuss as we as a council agreed last night that one of our major goals of 2021 would be a remediation action taken on the North Lake at least. Let's discuss among the group what we think that should look like without going absurdly into the minutia. So I guess I'll begin. I absolutely would like to see a dredge of some sort done. I think everything that we've had, shown to us indicates that a pretty comprehensive, dredge is necessary. And we're already, thanks to Tiffany, we have gotten we have gotten at least one estimate to accomplish that goal. So what are other people's thoughts on that? Does that sound fair? Do we want to go a completely different direction and start this whole process over?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you knew I'd have something to say about this. I'd like
Me
to,
too.
I don't think, and Joe, I don't think draining the lake this past year was such a horrible thing not to do it again and have that.
I would agree with that.
Because
I do know.
the thing that I wasn't able to do, and now that I saw where you would put a pump, is there was never any pumping of water to try to eliminate, or to enable it to dry out better. And that's why I keep going, this, or whatever test they did about how much moisture's in the muck. I'm sure depending on what day you went out there, it's going to have a lot of water. But if we were to, and I think it's very doable to get a pump and pump that thing out and keep it dry to the point where you can get excavators back in there. Small,
All right.
big
Well,
that's my vision.
I
And
read the
again,
estimate.
we heard a lot of pushback about, from people about it being drained, and it doesn't look good, but we still can do exactly what we did this past year and have.
We got a lot of junk out of South Lake. It
Right,
wasn't the drain and dredge, but I was very happy with what we accomplished.
And there's areas over by the dam that we didn't even get to, and there's a bunch of debris, dead trees back there.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think
That's
that
true of
there's,
the north end of North Lake
do what
too.
we did this year, only a little bit more let's say detailed, or come up with a plan for pumping it out.
yeah, but how about we focus, because, the North Lake is significantly worse. I love these ideas, Tony. I agree with them completely, and there's no reason that we can't also lower South Lake a little and, continue with the cleanups. But let's find a way, get North Lake, drained and divert the water like they discussed. Again, we need to find a way to do that. Let it dry out, have a cleanup, dredge the thing out, and then let it refill in a healthier state. That is, again, that's my vision. I don't think your and my visions conflict at all. We just want to be a little careful about leaving the lake drained or, lowered maybe quite as long, because we did get a fair amount of pushback.
Now that
but
whole thing, it's dependent on how much it rains, because
I know,
that valve was open the whole summer and it filled up and then drained back down. It was only able to drain in North Lake after, it was for 10 days to 2 weeks of little to no rain. That's why, I think we can get a pump. We've got pumps at the pool.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to throw a pump in the lowest part of North Lake, empty it
Right.
out, hold a cleanup, get the big crap out of the way, make it easier for excavators or whatever we end up going with. That group we have that group we have the estimate from to dredge out. Whatever we want to go with, that'd be excellent. It gets the community involved. It shows concrete progress on our part that we're listening and working for the people.
Well, and
I
with
mean-
the amount of money that's being, $200,000 price tag to have it dredged, I think this year, the conversation needs to be, had with some farmers that would ask them, what is the price? How much would would it cost? Instead of just saying, hey, is there some way we can dump this at? It's like, what would it cost for us to dump it somewhere close by? Not that far away. That's where I'd like to see this.
Well,
this
it would help now that we have soil contents samples made and we know what's in it. That would definitely be helpful. Or that is definitely helpful that we have it now. Madam Mayor, if I recall correctly, there were a couple options listed on that estimate of where we could dump. So we would at least have a baseline to shop around against. Is that a fair assessment?
So here's what I'm going to give you everything I know in 30 seconds. The holdup for the estimate for months was trying to find somewhere to dump it. I found one place, he found one place. Both were not too far off in price. In order to do the less expensive option, we still have to do more testing because they are not 100% going to take it. They're about 99% that they are willing to take it, but we do have to spend a little bit more money on a couple more tests. So, and that was described in the actual email that he sent me. So Tony is not wrong. I will tell you that the guy that gave us the estimate has also told us, everybody has told us, if we can find a farmer or something along those lines that's willing to take it, that would be something that is going to be significantly lower. But the issue is because it won't, the way that it is, it's not going to pack, and most farmers are not going to take it once they see it. So
I couldn't imagine they would. It's full of
yes.
chip
So,
bags.
and I'm not saying that they won't. I
It
mean,
isn't that bad.
yeah.
That
So
stuff is organic.
yeah,
Nothing but
there are
wood.
Cheetos bags under a foot of mud.
yeah. There's
Well,
the problem is once you get really far back, the problem is that's where you sink literally to your hips in an instant. And Hal would totally agree with that because I couldn't even walk back there without just going straight down. So
It was
that's
rough.
not
It was
gonna dry
rough in
out.
back there. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm not here to debate it or anything along those lines. If somebody has a recommendation on finding someone, I will tell you. Swaco, I had talked to several different people that was searching high, low, and everywhere in between to find anybody that was willing to take it. I have some notes that are sitting at the office, but they have put word out to people, farmer, again, this is something that they do. This is not, they have contacts. None of the contacts were willing to take it.
They
So-
don't want our.
No. So, and that's just, I'm not trying to be the negative Nelly here. I don't know where to tell us to take it at this point because I have not been able to locate any person that was willing to take it. I even went as far as to ask my dad whether or not this is something he would be willing to take. My brother has like 8 acres in Marengo. And he said the same thing. It's just going to be mush. I mean, it's not really going to pack. It's not really going to do much of anything. So, he just said that most people aren't going to take it. I mean, it's as simple as that. He said the same thing. Now, what's closer to the front, I do believe people would take. That does pack down. You can walk on it. That is not the problem. It's the stuff that's further back. So, do we split it up? Do we do this? Do we do that? I have no idea. At that point, you're starting to talk about other things. The only thing that the only reason I'm bringing this back to light is because I know Joe is probably going to mention this here in a few minutes. If anybody has any interest in revisiting the suck up thing, I know Tony did not. I know that there was a couple people that didn't have interest, but I know that there were some members that did as just a trial run. I just want to remind everybody that we have a 250,000 plus 250,000. The only, this is where we don't have that money. So the next step is, we can start making all these plans, But in order to do this, we have to put it out to bid. We have to figure out who's going to put the documents together to put out to bid, because Mike said that last night, that this is not necessarily something that he does, but could get some assistance with it. You know, we're talking 60 plus days to get this out to bid. You have to get the bid documents, then you have to advertise it for, I believe it's 22 days. You know, even if we got all of that information done tomorrow, you're talking, you got to turn this around pretty quick.
Yes,
Even have this
absolutely.
done this year. Okay, well, then where are we getting the money to do this? Are we going to try to do a loan of some sort? Are we going to do a grant? Are we going to, you know, do some sort of OPWC type thing? Well, now you're a year and a half away. And we talked about that last night. That's the problem with OPWC. You go in and you do all of the grant, and then you have to pay $10,000 for a grant writer to actually do all of this, because we can't write this grant. I can't write this grant. I mean, maybe one of you guys can, but I can't. I mean, the last time we did it, I mean, the packet was and Tony, I think you remember seeing it was like this. That is the only benefit. And I know we started talking about this briefly last night, of the charter. There's no options. We have to put it out to bid, and we have to have money to pay for it. And we don't have either one of those. So it's not just, we need to go with this metropolitan company. That's not an option. We still have to put it out to bid. So now take all of that and put that in a nutshell. And I'm not trying to be negative Nelly. I'm just trying to slow everybody back down, that this is why we continually stop at this point, because getting somebody to put the bid documents together is tens of thousands of dollars. Putting it out to bid itself does not cost anything. But then again, if we want to do a grant, we have to come up with the money, you know, we've got to pay the money for the grant writer. And then that's a super long process. Or we figure out from our finance department how we're going to finance it. This is going to be the same thing as the building.
There's another issue also, and that was, I'm certain the clay bed, when I read those documents, they were saying, you know, that their estimate, and I'm not saying we're hiring them, but they had said that everything was dependent upon having a proper clay bed at the bottom and all that. I don't think that's a problem, but diverting the entire storm sewer so that none of the water, well, when there's storm or meltwater that comes in, does not go into the lake is something to look at
I don't
too.
think that's possible, Joe. That's
Well, I
why
think it's possible. It would take some doing, but I mean, that's what they asked for. And
anything's possible, but you know, it comes in and, well, right behind your house. I mean, how would we
Right.
divert that?
there would have to be a temporary route for the water
How
to
about
take.
I mean,
Some-
we could put piping. I mean, is
That's
that
what they were
you
talking
mean?
about.
Put-
That's
Yeah,
It was
that's what
piping,
I- that's
piping
what-
around into South Lake.
That's what I envisioned is, or a ditch. You could dig a trench for it to go,
Yeah,
but then it has to be pumped up because the trench would be lower than the pipe that goes under Minerva Lake Road over to South
well,
Lake.
that's why I go back to pumping the thing out. I think, you know, I got some experience with pumping out the pool, and you know, and I've only used a 2-inch pump. And if you use a 4-inch pump, it can move a lot of water. It could drain that sucker in a couple hours. When it gets, if it's been drained and it hasn't rained much. You know, so, I mean, I think, you know, we're at the same point, like the mayor was saying, is that, you know, I think the next step is to, and I haven't put forth any effort in getting the whole, I've got friends with farmland. They're just crazy enough to take this stuff. If you say, I'll give you $25,000.
I agree. And Tony, I'm not in,
What I'm getting at is that
Right.
I don't think we've gone about it. And I think the first call is a guy across the street, when I say at the Rainier, on Westerville Road and Minerva Lake Road.
I've already called all
He's
them.
got, well,
Oh,
my
And
call.
the results were
if you
negative.
look over there, he's got a dump already going on. He's got like railroad ties, looks like someone dumped, I mean, look at the place.
I know, but I'm telling you, I already called all them. I called each,
But did you say, how much would it cost? If we gave you $25,000, would you?
I
let
just
it?
flat out asked them if they would be willing to, yeah, if we could dump it there and how much it would be. And they said they absolutely will not take it. And then we called the one that's further down. There's like 3 different ones on Westerville Road. So then they sent me to a different one that's a different, it's the same company, but a different place, like on the south side of Columbus. So then I called that one.
The Kurtz brothers or the mulch people? Is that
I've
what
talked to
you-
every one of those, and they would send me to the next one. And it was one of those that, I mean, the way that I do these conversations, because it's not my first rodeo, you know, trying to get people to do certain things, is you call them and you say, okay, if you don't do it, I know you're in the business, who would you recommend that I call? And every single one of them would give me 1 or 2 places to call. Call these people, they're great, da 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 da. And I would call them, and then they would say, yeah, no, we're not willing to take it, but try this. So I literally did that for 2 or 3 days and got nowhere. Well, I didn't not get anywhere. We did get the place that was willing, the Swaco, but like I said, it's so expensive. I can't remember which one that
Oh,
was,
that's
but,
right.
and then the guy from Metropolitan, same thing. He has literally been working with all of his, and that's what they do. He's been working with all of his connections and came up with one place that still wants more testing done to take it. So I
So-
know that this isn't crazy that people do this, obviously.
Was that the reason that they say no, that is because they're afraid there's some contamination or a
Yeah,
lack of biodegradability to it?
It sounds like it's just worthless. It's to them, it's worthless mush.
Well, I've dealt with the stuff. It's mostly leaves that don't biodegrade. They're slimy. They
Right, and
must
they-
have
they
a
don't have
million
any-
kinds of crap growing in them.
Well, like, there are-
Smells.
I've taught, my uncle's got a pond and he's dealt with this, and he's got a friend that does dredging work. And, you know, up in Delaware, there are farmers that will take the stuff and they just till it in. It's bio, you know, but you know, that's not what every farmer will do. You know? And I
Well,
don't
if
know
you
how
need-
to find out which ones will. And you
Right,
have
and I-
If you need
I do think
landfill, or
further
you have
down,
somebody that,
closer
there are
it's supposed
ways
to be
they
heat.
treat this stuff so that it breaks down, but that's expensive for them.
Oh,
So,
all right.
So,
Well-
go ahead, ma'am.
So no, I mean, so we still go back to the same scenario. If we're going to remove it, the other issue that we have is the amount that needs removed. Again, we all are fully aware that this hasn't been done. The amount of, it's still a guess as to how much we're removing. As you can see, I mean, this is a company that is pretty familiar with what it looked like when it was, you know, forever ago. That they did do the North Lake. This is, I believe, Tony, is that not accurate? This is the guy, they did the North Lake or the South Lake. This is the same company that did the South Lake.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is the one, he's like the main person, the biggest company in the area.
Right.
That does this stuff.
So it's something that this is exactly what they're expecting, how much they're expecting to remove. We still don't know that exactly because obviously, you know, we don't know how far down we're going to have to go to get to the bed. So this is where he believes it's going to be. But my opinion right now is, you know, where do we go from here? Because we've got to find somebody that can help us do the bid documents to at least find out. I mean, not to be crazy, maybe we can find, if you got an excavating company to bid on it, maybe they have that, clearly they may have a place to put it. So maybe we're all trying to spin our wheels with what somebody else already has the answer for. So
Okay, so how do we proceed in that direction then?
I have
To
no
get,
idea.
okay.
I'm just kidding.
I've got one person I can call because it just dawned on me, like I said, my uncle and has a pond that he has had dredged, and he knows a guy up in Delaware County that has a machine. He's even got like, you know, he can do it with like a backhoe from the edge. You know, that's what he's good at, but it doesn't work in our situation, you know, because you can't get in everybody's backyard.
And I
But
think
he
that
may
that's,
know someone, he may have someone up in Delaware County. What I'm trying to find is the closer it is to here, the cheaper it's going to be. So, you know, I've got friends out in West Jeff. I'll ask him and say,
Right.
you know, that's my next step is to start talking to my Morrow County buddies. Say, hey, I got
There's a place where there's lots of places that might be potentially places to take it, Morrow County.
right. And my other
If,
friend
if,
in
if
West
you
Jeff-
gentlemen have contacts out there, if there's avenues that have not yet been explored, by all means, make some phone calls. Because right now it sounds like right now it sounds like we can either spend a little bit more money and possibly have cheaper place to dump it, or we can pay the SWACO and,
Well, that gets us at that high number.
yeah, exactly.
So
Well, I still think it's worth considering while we ponder all of this to get some of the, like we did on the south end of North Lake and on South Lake, get some of this, bigger debris out of there and cut it up. It's mostly floating trees and logs, not the mud.
By
the
all
issue
means,
that
yeah.
the issue that they came up with is they spent a day and a half back in there, and they're battling the same thing. Half of the areas they can't get into, they sink all the way. They can't get equipment back there. You can't just carry them out. Back in that back area is just very difficult to get the machinery, and that was the battle that they were fighting. I mean, they have rowboats, they have different things like that, but there's, again, once you get into some of those smushy parts, they spent a day and a half in the North Lake, and they got 10 times more done in the South Lake in the amount of time that they were there than they did in the North Lake due to the difficult maneuvering in there. Simple as that. So our money was spent 10 times better over in the South Lake. Now the North Lake is the one that needs all the work.
Yeah, we're
or
gonna have
even
to rip
more.
that Band-Aid off at some point.
Yes.
It may as well be
Here's-
us.
Here's what
We
I'm
need to be
curious
the ones
about.
to act.
There's trees there that can be, have lines attached to them. They can be pulled out and then cut up. Well, you would have to pull them north, which would go along near where the canal is. But there is a long stretch right where the East Shore Court pipe's supposed to go. That would tear up some ground up there, but there are vehicles that could pull it up that way.
Right,
There's
but
a
that's somebody's property up there. I mean, we would still have
Well,
to get
yeah,
permission.
it's Paul Miller's property. It's mine, and it's the new people next to me.
Right. So, and then going the other direction, if they went up towards, even if they could get up towards Park Lane and all of that kind of stuff, it's not as easy. You've got to get documentation signed and, permission, and then you've got to come back in and fix their property as soon as it is, because you're going to tear it up. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You're going to make a mess in somebody's property if you end up doing it that way. So, yeah. So,
It's
I mean,
a
that's
messy
going to,
job.
yeah. So until we're ready to do the big job, I mean, to me, I don't want to mess up residents.
I was thinking kind of along the lines of one tree at a time,
Right.
to keep making some progress. I
Right.
can go my John Deere up with a chain to some of it and pull it out.
Yeah. I mean, it all needs done.
Well, let me take the fence down for a minute.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It all needs done. And I know this is exactly why we've got to figure out, what we can do to move forward. I know we need a bigger lakes plan. I know we need all of that. But at this point, step one, and there's 100 steps to this, but to me, it's still, and I know I'm not the person that gets to decide how we spend the money and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like we've talked about this long enough. It needs dredged. I don't,
Yes.
I mean, I will tell you, believe this or not, and I'm not going to give you a name, but I actually have had somebody else reach out to me that doesn't think that we should spend the money on it, that we should let it fill in. I'm not even kidding about that. So, and turn it into more of a wetlands. And that was not, I am saying, a recent person.
They don't
That's
live
still
on the
not what we
lake.
want to do.
Can you at least say whether they live on the North
Yes,
Lake?
they live right by there. I will tell you that
I
they
mean,
live right by
on-
there.
They live by it or they live on the North?
I'm gonna give too much away. There's only about 8 people over there. So we will say that, they would like to, and I shouldn't say this. We have residents on that area that would really like to be a part of the conversation of what we do. But in my opinion, this is where maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if we are dredging it, I think that we're just dredging it. I think getting too many people involved in all of that, we're going to have to get them involved to get permission to get in some of their yards, and being cooperative. There's one thing I guess that I've learned with the sewer projects is, and I'm not implying that any one of these particular residents would be like this, but I can tell you that I actually had more complaints about the sewer project that shocked me, that people were complaining because we were doing sewer work. They weren't properly notified. They wanted to be updated every time that we were in front of their home. I mean, there were numerous, and it was surprising to me. This is something, it's a different world to me. To me, if somebody's doing a project, I'm thrilled with it because I feel like then that's your money being spent to do this project. So
Yeah, we're trying to help.
correct.
We're
So
not
I
here to
will
inconvenience
tell
them.
you that I can't count them on one hand. That's how many people in the last 3 weeks were complaining in the Lakewood area. I had multiple people complaining because they were upset that people were over in that area working. So my point being that it surprises me, like me, I would open up my yard and tell people to do whatever they needed to do in order to fix whatever. That's always been my way of, I don't have a problem with people cutting through my yard, as long as they're not stealing something going through there. I don't have issues with that. And to me, when it's surprising to me that, some of the things that upset people. So I have learned that we need to make sure that we are really on top of the residents that are in that particular area and making sure that they are involved to an extent. Again, getting permission to being in the area, getting all of that kind of stuff is going to be very important when this project starts. So that's going to be a huge thing of communication that we need to make sure that we're on top of. I mean, I guess that's the easiest thing to say it because
Yes.
not everybody watches Facebook. Not everybody is going to know what's going on. But it's something that we need to make sure that, everybody's fully on board, that there could be a mess in the close vicinities of their yards and all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully we
Okay.
have people that are really willing to cooperate and willing to give us some of the space to be able to work, because I think the project would go a lot faster. But if they're not willing to, I respect that, and we will respect that and do the best that we can do getting the equipment in and out of there.
Okay, so that sounds wonderful.
I was up
This
around
takes us
Hoover.
back.
I was on the shoreline on Hoover for 60 years, and the stuff that went on there, but Columbus wasn't real nice about it. They'd come in, and if somebody made a complaint, they'd say, "Oh gosh, great. Let's see if you can find somebody to tell that to. And meanwhile, would you get out of the way?"
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's a learning curve for me. I've only sat here for a year, so it's a learning curve for me that, not everybody's different. So I don't judge anybody for, maybe they just didn't understand the project or something like that. So I guess my point is the communication may not have been as great as I had thought it was for some of those things, because I was surprised at some of the complaints we got.
Okay.
Well, when I
So going
mentioned
forward-
thing on communications about community centric communicating, if we know when there's going to be people working someplace, and these are areas where you're saying there are complaints, I don't have any problem with people, writing that stuff up and doing notices and explaining and whatnot.
It's my understanding that everybody
Just
did
give
have
them
a
those
notice.
numbers.
Everybody in the area did have a notice when the work was being done, especially if it affected them.
So this is all wonderful stuff, and I fully agree with all of it, the communication and the reaching out to the nearby property owners going forward. This still takes us back to where we currently are. What is next?
I'd like to see some cleanup along the shoreline on the parts of North Lake where we're talking about doing that. It's dense vegetation, some in there. That's something could be a volunteer project. Of course, the weather's not real good for it right now, but there's some down trees, some leaning trees, and some things. And I know the tree work's expensive. Is any of that in the bid, Mayor Tiffany?
No, not in the bid that we got for that. That is strictly a dredging project. Strictly
And that's
dredging.
So that-
expensive.
That is exactly what I meant. How do we what is the next step to get dredging? Let's say for the sake of argument, there's nobody else offers to dredge. That group is our dredging people. What happens next? How do
How
we
you pay for it.
proceed?
Can't
Huh?
figure out how we pay $200,000 for it.
Well, write a check, Tony.
What?
Well,
I
or
mean,
we get our
that's
own
always a
backhoe and do it a
question. I mean,
little
I'm
bit
not
at a time,
understanding
Tony.
Yeah, get out your checkbook, Tony. We got it.
Well, I'm about to pay Powerball, so get a hold of me tomorrow. I'll let you
All
know.
right.
I'm about ready to do a dredging startup company.
Maybe that's the
Okay.
four of it. Maybe the four of us should go out and play the lottery tonight and see if we can dredge the lake with it. Hey.
I
if
got
you
the
feel
ticket
like-
here. I haven't checked the numbers.
Well, I
It's
think the
tonight,
next
isn't
step is to do what we did this past year.
Absolutely. Only with the North Lake.
We did.
You
We
know-
spent a day and a half over there in the North Lake cutting down trees. But when you,
Yeah.
the other part to this is, when you're spending $2,000-3,000 a pop for a day, that adds up quick.
It
And
does.
when you
I know.
can't get the equipment in there, it adds up even quicker. So when you're getting 10% of what you're getting out in the other, and again, it has to be done, but we've got to figure out a better way to do it. It is much easier to do it when, and nobody wants to hear this, because I will tell you, we did have some people that they don't want to see this lake going up and down. I mean, we know that. Now, again, if you're dredging, I think they're going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
But to lower it, to continue to lower it just to cut trees down and this and that, you're going to start getting some pushback. I definitely will say I did start getting pushback towards the end of the year. We all
Yeah.
knew
We
that.
did last year. I
Yeah.
got some
Well,
emails too.
I was thinking a minor cleanup along the shorelines that we could do as volunteers, or a little bit here and there.
So
Yeah,
To
I
make it
mean-
more
days?
accessible. But I'd like to make a point, and the point is this, that if we get a lot of this crap that's floating on the top of it, that's visible out of there, which a lot of it's not so difficult to do, it's the appearance of the place is going to improve dramatically without dredging and without draining or anything.
So today in her preliminary confirmation hearing, Secretary Treasury nominee Janet Yellen spoke about the crises and the struggles facing us as a nation. And she stated that now is the time to act big. And there's no, I love the look Tony's giving me. And there is
I can't wait to see where this is going.
my point is taking off a few stumps, taking the logs off the top.
That's not
That's-
the job. That's just, that would
Exactly, that
lower the
helps.
heat from the complaints.
That's true, but it's this is an era in which to act big. We like Mayor Tiffany said, it needs done. It's been needing done. It would be wonderful if we could be the group to get it done. Act big. Is all
So here's what I can do.
Towards the method of funding that you won't want to hear about.
Right.
when the-
So here's
big-
potentially what we can do, at least today. And you guys tell me where and this is something that, I may just have to do a little bit of research about to try to find somebody that can do bid documents and exactly what I need to do to get it put out to bid. Okay. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is we do plan on having a finance meeting very soon.
Good.
Unfortunately, we still do not have the documents we need to finish out the rest of the year. We don't have it yet.
Now, is there
Um,
any way to combine, have communication there to observe for that meetings? So we could,
So here's what to answer that question, yes. I send out an invite to every single council member to every single one of these meetings. It is your choice whether or not you want to come or whether or not you don't. But I send out for the safety committee meeting, I invited every single one of you, whether you are on the committee or not. I do that with every single meeting. There is definitely not an issue with that. That finance meeting is going to have a lot of information. That finance meeting is going to be end of year. That finance meeting is going to be November, December, January. Finances, that is going to be a very detailed meeting. There's not going to be a lot of room to discuss certain things, but there's definitely, with the lakes being something of what it is, having a conversation with both Leah and Kim as far as next steps go. I think that's going to be a conversation we really need to have.
Excellent.
And what we need to do to secure some funding. And I don't know, and this is going to sound horrible on here, but I'm not as excited about trying to do an OPWC loan or something like that that's going to take 1.5 years to get. I don't know what your guys' feelings are towards it. I know if we could get this price tag down and find somewhere to dump it, and we're only talking 250 compared to 500,000, I don't mind the little bit of interest that we would pay on it. Interest rates are so low anyways.
Mhm.
I think waiting another year and a half for an OPWC grant, loan, whatever, is just,
Yeah.
just to think that this could go on another year and a half, 2 years does not sound appealing to me.
I'll get a hold of
Yes.
Greg because he knows places all over parts of Indiana, all of Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. I'll ask him where they might need some stuff. I don't
Right.
know what the answer might be, but I'll inquire, and then I'll inquire through the university.
Yeah. So
Okay, that is
Their
wonderful.
agricultural department is huge, and they may have some leads.
right. And that, I mean, that's ultimately what we're looking for, because dumping it, as you guys saw, was the cost. I mean, I'm not saying that we couldn't find a dredging company a little bit less expensive. And the guy told us that. I mean, the guy was very upfront about it. I mean, this is a company that does this. This is, it's a reputable company. It's a company that did it before. Some people might feel a little more comfortable going this direction than, ABC dredging or ABC excavators or whatever. But, ultimately, you guys all make that decision. I do believe you could find an excavator that could do it drastically less expensive. It's just a matter of finding somewhere to dump it and figuring out how we're going to pay for it and making sure that we put it out to bid, because we have to do that. So that's the one downfall that is going to slow it down. But that to me is something that I feel like if we got all of that part out of the way, maybe we find somebody that's willing to bid on it and do it a little less expensive than some of the others.
Tony,
I'll-
you're a general contractor,
If
correct?
there's people that need this material because
I'm a remodeling contractor. I wouldn't call it a general.
Okay, I knew you did some kind of, contracting work. And I mean, would you have any leads? Anybody with excavation experience you might be able to do like a friends and family for us, or?
I have, I mean, the new bit of information that I have is that, I wouldn't say new information, but I haven't started talking about spending any money, or being able to pay, someone. But yeah, I've got some people that I can, I mean, again, I got a lot of friend or business friends that know excavating company. That's not the problem. It's where do you take the stuff?
And you're correct.
That's-
That you are
Okay.
100% correct. So to end that, David, I mean, there are things that I think everybody could be making a couple phone calls, anybody that they know. I'm going to see what we can do to get some, and Mike kind of threw that little ring in our, thinking that we would have to do one of those, what is it, RFQ or whatever.
Request for qualifications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
RFQ, yeah.
So, having to do all of that just to get a company, I mean, that to me just makes my head want to spin. Just to, because
I have
then
a
I
cousin
have to
that
bring,
did-
the thing that you got to remember is I have to bring that to you guys. You guys have to approve that. Then we have to approve the, like,
It
Getting
doesn't
this out
have to
to bid's
be
gonna
as
take-
complicated as it was with the architects. I understand that it doesn't have to be that difficult.
no, it definitely doesn't, but you still have to go through the whole process.
Yeah,
and have
you gotta,
council's approval, and then we have to start with the actual bid documents, and then you have to get, and those take weeks, and then you got to put it out to bid, and that takes 22 you got to leave it out there for 3 weeks. And so my point is you're going to have to get the engineering firm approved from council, then you're going to have to get the bid documents approved through council, and then you're going to have to put it out to bid. And I mean, you're going to be talking about June before you bat an eye. So
Yeah,
that's the unfortunate part with all of this.
Does anybody have an estimate of the cubic yards of how much there is?
The only thing I have is the bid that we sent.
That mix, when they process manure, that want material to mix. That's excellent. This is excellent material for that. I'll look into that
there
some.
was some numbers in one of that estimate from a few years ago. And I'm thinking it was 100,000 cubic yards. It was a lot, but that was the north and the south lake. That was like
Yes.
the whole, that was everything.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, guys. So it seems like the next part of our goals should be deciding where this stuff will go if we have. I mean, look, here's the thing. We have an option. it's an expensive one, but we have an option. So if we're unable to find another place, we do have a place we can put it, and then we'll need to find a way to finance it. How much do you recall the test being to qualify our waste for the cheaper storage place, Madam Mayor? Do you happen to have that information?
Yeah, hang on.
Because if it's something that we can just do administratively, we may as well. Because I can darn near guarantee it will be cost saving in the long run if it works.
Okay, hang
I
on.
guarantee there's some places that would want this stuff. Finding them is what I'm gonna work on.
Okay,
Anybody
that's
doing
excellent, Joe.
larger amounts of landfill or grading, this kind of thing.
I'm going to answer some questions if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
I am estimating 6,000 cubic yards or 7,500 tons to be removed from the North Lake. Is that correct? Do you have any plans for the South Lake in 2021? So he's asking me if I know, but clearly, he must have gotten 6,000 cubic yards from somewhere.
Well, that's odd. That's a number I'll use because it doesn't have to be precise.
Construction debris point of contact, additional analysis. Swaco. Hang on. I thought he gave it to me. Hang on. Okay. That's not it. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had it, but it's not.
Well, there was also all that stuff about the baskets, the giant barrels to dry it out in before you transport it.
Well, that becomes an issue. Where do you put those things?
Yeah,
And
well,
it can't be that
it was
far
my
if you
understanding there's a lot more people take it if it was dried out and decontaminated.
How about the construction site where the school is being built? Is there enough room there?
That was my initial thought. And I just
It's
didn't
gotta
go
be
any
close
further.
enough- It's got to be close enough that you can pump it into the container and then let it dry. You can't.
You can't. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh,
500 feet. It's got the numbers that I can remember seeing is like it can't be any further away than 500 feet.
well,
Yes.
darn it.
Because when the South Lake was done, they literally trucked away water. They didn't even give it time to settle. They just pumped it into tanker trucks. Is the way that the South Lake was done 20 years ago.
I was going to say, Tony, do you remember? Were you a part of the village government?
No,
Were
I
you a
wasn't
part?
around. I wasn't around when that happened.
Okay.
going
Is
on
there
the
anybody?
The city of Hilliard recently did 3 big ponds. And I talked to the people at length and they said that they started out to scoop the stuff up and they had a place to take it and everything. They were putting it in the trucks and it was seeping out the sides. So they were running their street cleaners behind the trucks. When they got to the city line, somebody said, stop.
Figure it in the price. You just do street cleaning every night.
You can't drain this stuff all the way to Grove City.
So is there anybody, do we know of anybody who was around during the last dredging and draining that would be able to lend insight on how they got past this point that we've been
City
stuck
of
at?
Hilliard. They
No,
just
like
did.
I just
No,
said,
I mean Minerva Park. Is there anybody still around that we know of who was a part of
I've
the
had this
first
conversation
dredging?
about what information you're trying to get. It was,
Yeah.
they got a loan. The last time the
Yeah.
village got a loan of a couple $100,000, 200,000 or 300,000. And that
Yeah.
was 20 years ago. And that process, like I just said, was to pump it into tanker trucks and then take it wherever the heck they took that to.
Yeah, they basically bit the bullet and paid the money, and this is the company that they went through. So Tony's correct.
I
So
understand
they
the
didn't,
tanker trucks because they don't leak.
Right. So to easily answer the question, they didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They contacted this, they probably put it out to bid. This was the lowest bid or whatever, because they had to even do that back then. And they got a loan for it. And the problem is we're all cheap. And none of us want to spend that kind of money. And I think that's why we keep going in circles. We're all
We
going, this
just
is,
paid the. we
At
just
some
paid the
point, we're
loan
gonna just
off a
have to
couple
rip
years
the
ago.
Band-Aid off. That lake will get worse every year until it turns itself into a
Right.
wetland.
Well, and
And
that's
maybe
the
that's-
conversation that we're gonna have, maybe a finance conversation is, I don't know that we're ready to rip the Band-Aid off, as you keep saying, because we gotta rip the Band-Aid off for a building. So at this point, I think, the building's a higher priority than dredging the lakes. That's why I think moving forward this year, we're gonna do, I wouldn't say the exact same thing we did this past year, but along the same lines is, some lake cleanup, at least one lake camp, because I think we got a pretty good turnout from the
Yes,
people that showed
yeah,
up.
we absolutely
got a
need to
lot
do another lake
done,
cleanup or two.
and I know the one time it was pretty bad weather, so,
Yeah,
I
that was
think
the
if we're
first
gonna
one in
have
June. We were all out in the rain.
And right behind me, you can see, David, I got a bunch of pop bottles from the North Lake when I went over there. If you
Oh
look
my
at that
goodness.
table, and they're old ones, man. Some of them I've never seen before.
I've got 5 or 6 sitting on my from the South Lake. I'd love to see your North Lake one sometime. I'd love to dig
Well, I'm
around
gonna
for
clean
some
them
more.
up and we'll show them. I'll bring them to the next lake cleanup.
I have found tons of these old bricks, most of them in pristine condition that were made in an old kiln in Gahanna when Gahanna didn't exist. I look on eBay and they're going for $50 a piece.
Wow. Well, at any rate, yeah, I completely agree that we need to lower the thing and do some cleanups again to show the people that we're working for them, that we're trying to do something, but on a grander scale. So when people might discuss not being ready to rip the Band-Aid off of paying for the North Lake remediation, would that be a topic to discuss at the next finance meeting as well? Or where would we go from that?
exactly. I mean, at this point, I think it's going to be, what can we afford? How can we get the money? And how quick can we get the money? Those types of questions. If it ends up being that we need to do an OPWC, that's one of those that she's just going to tell us, look, you're going to have to go this direction.
Okay.
And if that's the case, that's the case. But if it's some sort of grant or something along those lines, it's just a very long process and a costly. I mean, again, we have to pay somebody to do the loan and to do everything. So, or to do the grant, sorry. So there's some additional steps that you'll have to go into if that's the way that we end up doing it. But let me do a couple things. I will reach out to finance because I don't want to wait until the finance meeting and maybe get you guys some updates on that. And then, again, finding out how we can get the bid documents. And Mike said that this was, it might be a little bit more, and I'm just going to say this, Mike said it might be like you guys were at last night, might be a little bit more expensive to use him because they don't have anybody local to do all of that. That said, if it's going to be an extremely long process for us to be able to get another engineer in and do all of that, and just as expensive, maybe we just find out from Mike for sure how much it's going to cost us. So I think we need to look at all of the above.
Okay, so then we'll at least, okay, so that is wonderful. Then we'll at least have some ideas of where else we're going to get us out of this rut. Okay, perfect.
Well, I hear the EPA offers funding for projects like this, but I haven't looked into that.
Yeah.
Again, there are people who do that day in, day out for jobs. We can have them do that when we get to that stage. So that's a lot of bottles back there, Tony. I was wondering if that's what those were. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, now that we have possibly gotten the wheels turning on the lake again, and now that we're going to do a couple, at least one other big cleanup with the dumpsters, because that was so well received and useful. The last thing I want to talk about is the pool. We need to get a pool meeting with Mr. John. So I have his number. I haven't called him yet or talked to him. Do you guys remember, or Madam Mayor, do you remember how his preferred communication is, how his preferred meetings are? Because we need to get in touch with him and get things rolling too.
At this point, I believe he's pretty much still or I don't even think they're hybrid. I think they are completely remote still at this point. So in the evenings, he's usually pretty flexible.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as that goes, as long as we give him a week or two, I'm sure he will be totally fine with that. So if we were to do this in February, and the big things to remember is just this. In order for us to advertise the new pool prices, we do 3 readings and then they actually are approved in 30 days. Well, obviously
Yes.
we know that this is coming. There's no reason to try to do an emergency or anything. We
Mhm.
like to get this on the website. We like to try to get some of the advertisement going out so people can start doing that. And obviously we want to make sure that we're ready to go. February is fine, but I would say anything past mid-February, that puts you 2 readings in March, 1 in April, and you're barely passed by May. So
If there are no hiccups.
if there's no hiccups. So, I mean, the first reading of the pool fees would be awesome to be by the second meeting in February.
Yes. So let's get in touch. Let me see if I got a new phone. Let me make sure his number actually transferred over. In my contacts here. John Poole. Yes, okay.
I can walk across the street and give them a message if you'd like.
There you go.
But yeah, let's see. I'm gonna text him right now and see what days or what days evenings work best for him
Perfect.
so that we can all have a little powwow. So I don't want to keep you here any longer than I have to because I know every one of you guys has, your own lives and things to do. So we talked about the 2 or 3 major resident requests, all of which seem to be already in their appropriate directions, but we can always add on more as the needs arise. We moved, or we figured out that we're still in the same rut we found ourselves in with the lake, but we're going to have a cleanup or 2 this summer and try to figure out how to get the funding for the dredging. And lastly, we are going to get in touch with Mr. John to establish a time for a pool get together, and so that we have all the time we need to get everything read and passed within an appropriate amount of time. Is there anything else that is felt that we need to discuss?
No, but I
Well,
would say
we were gonna work on where to try and find a place to dump material.
right.
Well, yeah, that's one of the avenues. That is one of the avenues, Joe. I know you said you
On
had
my
some
list.
some of your buddies or some of your contacts, Joe. So that would be. I look forward to hearing back from you about that.
The thing that I would say about the lake cleanup is just make sure you schedule it far enough in advance to where I can get the dumpsters and do all of that. And we have an appropriate amount of time for advertisement for the lake cleanup. Obviously, we have no idea what weather's going to be, but just picking a date, some point in time, whether it's March, April, May, June, I would just do a spring one at this point for now, in case we are moving forward by that point. So just so you have ample time to advertise.
The snow on the ground,
Yeah, no, I'm not either.
yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna go with probably April or May. Just don't do too far into May because you end up with graduations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd probably
I
say
think they're gonna be doing
mid-May.
that this year?
Probably not, but
I'm sorry, I didn't want to get you going. I shouldn't be-
No,
Right,
it rains,
that's horrible.
it rains a lot in April too, so.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll get in touch with John. Joe, you get in touch with your people. Madam Mayor, thank you so much for your support and your digging around with the financial options.
I'll deal with that tomorrow. Yes.
Okay. I will. Yeah, I'll get in touch with John right now. I'll get in touch with him tonight, and we'll get that date figured out. Tony, would it be inappropriate to ask you to bring over 1 or 2 of your favorite bottles? Some of those look real old back
Let me
there.
clean them up first, all right? That's what
Okay,
we're working-
okay.
Clean them up.
Yeah,
put
I
something
hosed
good
all
in 'em.
mine
We'll
off and
try 'em
bottle
out.
rushed them out last summer. I got a couple of classic Coca-Colas from the 50s. There's a plain green glass from 53, and there's even there's one or two Fantas and a 7-Up or Sprite from the 60s that I found. I'd love to compare notes with you, maybe
think
dig
there's
around with you
some-
later this year.
There looks like some dates of the 50s in there.
Well, you
Oh,
and I will be
well-
digging around together later this spring.
Those
Well,
old
that wouldn't be-
Pepsi bottles
that's
with
why
the
I like
swirl
draining the
around
lake.
them.
Yeah,
Did
drain
you
'em,
find
man.
any of those old Pepsi bottles with with the swirl around them, Tony? The very first Pepsi bottles had swirls.
Yeah, this is a Pepsi with the swirls. All right, well, let's go. I gotta go. I'm hungry. I grabbed the Pepsi and I realized I'm hungry.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I think we made a reasonable amount of progress. We're at least all starting off in directions that we need to be going in. If there's nothing else, I suppose that wraps it up.
If you're bored, 7 o'clock at the community building for P and Z tomorrow.
I'm going to be
yeah.
at work at 7 o'clock.
Oh,
No.
that's a question I
Tony,
got.
don't forget we have safety.
Oh, at
Yeah,
5.
how much,
Yeah.
how much closer are we to really being able to do meetings in the, you're doing meetings in the community center already, huh, Tony?
Well, we've been doing planning and zoning meetings in there. I mean, I guess the reason we've been doing that is there's not as many people required at these meetings. But I mean, that's a good question, Joe. I'd like to get back to doing meetings, and that's something I think it isn't going to go over well with the with the other people on council, I don't think. or with anybody.
Hey, I'm getting my second round of the vaccination on the 2nd
You'll
of
be
February.
good.
You guys can't hurt me anymore.
No, at this point, I'm leaving that up to everybody else. It's your guys' council meeting. I'm not fighting it. And I believe that we've done it safely as far as the planning and zoning. We have 6 people that's on planning and zoning. Saturday work sessions would probably be the biggest ones. But some of our meetings literally could have 7 people at it. We don't necessarily have to have Eric and everybody at all of them. The first Monday meeting, I know we have Chief and Leah and all of that. So that would definitely be more people. The second meeting of the month, we really don't have that many people. It's comfort level. We wear masks when we go in for planning and zoning. I set the tables all completely across the rooms from each other, is at the farthest point. And it's more of when everybody else decides that they want to go in. We have meetings in there not every single day, I don't want to exaggerate. We have meetings with anywhere from 4 to 8 people in there at any given time.
So
So
they got the new air system in with
Correct.
the UV and all that.
Yep. So we have everything going as far as that goes. We've not had any issues, problems, or anything like that, but not everybody's on the same comfort level. And I appreciate, I definitely am not going to make somebody do something that they're not comfortable with. And I know some people, they have to go home to people that are potentially, more susceptible to illness. I don't have that here. So it's easier for me to say, let's go. So I choose not to. I'm going to let council make that decision, and council is going to decide eventually when they want to go back in. The conversation, to me, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you guys. I will be in a meeting when you tell me to be wherever.
Good answer, Mayor.
Well, guys, that wraps it up. Tony, I look forward to digging around in the muck with you this summer. But
I can't wait. It's a date.
it's a
Bye,
date.
guys.
See you guys.
Bye.